In the heart of Bratislava, tucked away in an old, forgotten park, there stands a gate. Not just any gate, but one woven with ancient iron and strangled by dark, gnarled vines. People say it only truly opens when the moon casts its pale light, revealing a garden beyond that simply isn't there in the harsh glare of day. It's a place of hushed whispers and moon-drenched secrets. At first, it was just curious wanderers, drawn by hushed rumors, who would venture near after dusk. They'd push past the tangled growth, step through the cold iron archway, and find themselves in a realm of silver light and silent blooms. Inside, the air was unnervingly still, the petals luminous, the moss soft beneath their feet. It felt like mere moments, a brief ethereal stroll through an impossibly beautiful moonlit space that shimmered with an otherworldly glow. But then they would step back out, back into the familiar park, and that's when the strange reports began to surface, spreading like a chilling breeze. Their watches, their phones, the very rhythm of this, a quick peek transformed into a missing afternoon, sometimes even an entire night. No one knew why. The world outside had simply moved on, uncaring, while they wandered in a place where time itself seemed to hold its breath. That was strange enough. The whispers around Bratislava's park grew undeniable. Stories of the iron and vine gate, of the moonlit garden beyond it, and of time simply stopping, these were too persistent to ignore. At first, people dismissed them as campfire tales. But then, serious individuals began sharing their own bewildering experiences. Skepticism gave way to chilling curiosity, prompting officials to dispatch observers to verify these strange claims. These new investigators, trained professionals, stepped through the gate of shadows on successive moonlit nights. They carried synchronized watches, GPS, and recording devices. Inside, their instruments confirmed the horrifying truth. Time truly halted. Seconds, minutes, hours simply didn't pass while they walked among the luminous, silent flora. Watches froze instantly, only resuming outside. But then things got worse. Beyond the temporal anomaly, a deeper strangeness settled in. Paths twisted into disorienting mazes. They'd enter facing one way, only to find themselves inexplicably disoriented, convinced they'd emerged from a different direction. The garden wasn't just timeless. It actively rejected the very notion of physical space, leaving profound confusion and unease. People say it was the pictures that truly cemented the dread. After the whispers of lost time and impossible journeys, brave souls, or perhaps foolish ones, started bringing cameras. They wanted proof. They wanted answers. At first, the images only confirmed the eerie stillness, the impossible bloom of flowers that defied the seasons. That was strange enough. But then things got worse. The photographs, especially those taken when the moon hung low and thin, began to reveal unsettling patches within the garden's impossible beauty, areas that looked unfinished, like a canvas where the artist had stopped halfway, leaving ghostly outlines or blank, shimmering voids. Sometimes a fountain appeared with no water, just dry, forgotten stone. Other times, a patch of ground would be missing its texture. Like a poorly rendered image, a digital glitch in a real place. Only certain angles, bathed in specific lunar light, would expose these inconsistencies, these bizarre gaps in reality. And then, there was its twisted patterns. The dark leaves clinging to the cold metal seemed to subtly rearrange themselves. A small bird sculpted into the iron might vanish, only to reappear later in a different spot, or even mutate into something else entirely. A new, unnerving symbol would emerge, briefly, before fading back into the vine's embrace. No one knows why it changed, but it did, and with every subtle shift, the silence around the Gate of Shadows grew heavier, colder. The garden wasn't just strange, it was broken, and the gate was actively evolving, watching. The Gate of Shadows was already a place whispered about, its iron twisting like skeletal fingers. But then came an even stranger detail. People say it first appeared nestled right at the base of the gate, half buried in the overgrown ivy. A small, weathered thing made of tarnished brass, heavy and oddly warm in the hand. Someone, perhaps a curious wanderer, picked it up, intending to do the right thing, to turn it into the lost and found. They put it safely in their pocket. That was strange enough, an ancient key where there shouldn't be one. But then things got worse. The very next evening, the key was seen again. Not in the finder's pocket, but resting on the worn stone path, just beyond the gate's threshold. A different person found it, assuming it was simply lost twice over. They moved it, perhaps leaving it conspicuously on a nearby bench. Yet, by morning, it would inevitably reappear. Sometimes under the gate's silent, shadowy arch, sometimes glinting faintly from the dewy grass just inside the forbidden garden. It was just there, always, waiting, and it brought with it a cold, undeniable dread, an unspoken invitation. The first explorers, those bold enough to step through the Gate of Shadows more than once, naturally tried to document their experiences. They brought in recording equipment, hoping to capture the ethereal calm, the impossible stillness. But what they captured, or rather, didn't capture, was far more disturbing than any strange sound. At first, their recordings returned nothing at all. Just pure, dead silence. Not the silence of a quiet room, but a suffocating void where even the subtle hum of the distant city, or the rustle of their own clothes, simply ceased to exist on the playback. It was as if the garden devoured every vibration, leaving behind an empty echo of reality. That was strange enough, but then, as some dared to try again, things got truly unsettling. Their devices, instead of silence, would occasionally capture sounds that defied logic, whispers that seemed to come from nowhere and everywhere at once, footsteps that twisted and stretched, sounding less like human movement and more like something non-Euclidean echoes, people called them. Sounds that reverberated from impossible angles, bending and warping until they were unrecognizable. No one knew why the garden chose to dampen sound so completely, only to sometimes replace it with such maddening disembodied noise. It was as if the very air itself played tricks on your ears, planting seeds of doubt and dread directly into your mind. With time behaving so strangely inside the moonlit garden, it was only natural for people to try and understand its physical form. They started mapping it, meticulously charting every twisted path, every shadowed bush, every silent stone bench. At first, it seemed simple enough, a solvable puzzle. But then things got worse. A path surveyed one night, noted to lead to the Weeping Willow, would, on a subsequent visit, deliver the mapper to the very edge of the shimmering pond. Loops appeared where none had been before, guiding frustrated individuals back to their starting point. No one knew why. The meticulously drawn lines on their parchment became worthless, contradicted by the living, shifting reality of the place. It wasn't just disorienting, it felt active, as if the garden itself pushed back against being understood, against being contained within lines and measurements. Every tree, every flower bed, every archway seemed to rearrange itself, but the constant, unpredictable changes started to gnaw at their minds, making them question not just the garden's layout, but their own sanity. People had heard about the Gate of Shadows for a while now. They whispered about the moonlit garden beyond, where time simply stopped. At first, it was just a curiosity, a strange detour in Bratislava, but some couldn't resist going back, drawn by the quiet, the peculiar peace. That was strange enough. But then things got worse. Visitors, especially those who had stepped through the gate more than once, started to notice things, small blanks in their minds. A friend's name, a childhood home, the job they'd held for years. It felt like trying to grasp smoke, fading just beyond reach. No one knew why, but the memories of their own lives, their own faces in old photographs, grew dim. They'd stare at familiar pictures, a blank, unsettling feeling washing over them. Was that, really, their mother, their spouse? Their own reflection felt foreign. The faces felt distant, like strangers. And the garden itself, the perfect, silent garden, became a jumble of conflicting images. A rose bush they swore was there yesterday, gone today. The horror wasn't just losing time, it was losing themselves. And the chilling part, they barely noticed until it was too late. The moon always hung perfectly still in the garden sky, a silent, unblinking eye. People had grown accustomed to the impossible flora, the chilling silence, the way time itself just paused. They knew the rules, or thought they did. But then, the mirrors began to lie. It started subtly. A small, polished plaque on a forgotten bench reflected not the thorny rose bush before it, but a barren, snow-covered landscape. A dusty glass panel in a dilapidated greenhouse, instead of the moonlit interior, showed a bustling, sun-drenched city street. That was strange enough. A minor optical trick, perhaps, easily dismissed. But then, the reflections deepened. Still pools of water, usually calm and dark, shimmered with truly impossible sights. One moment they showed a version of the garden, overgrown and crumbling, the iron gate rusted shut, swallowed by ancient vines. The next, it mirrored an entirely different world, bathed in a pulsing violet light, with strange, organic structures that defied known architecture. People, and some, they swore, saw not themselves, but a spectral, ghost-like figure standing in their place, gazing back from a reality that shouldn't exist. No one knew why the garden was now showing these fractured glimpses of other places, other times, and no one could tear their eyes away, caught between what they saw with their own eyes and the horrifying truths reflected just beneath the surface. People say the first signs were almost dismissed as tricks of the eye. A fleeting glimpse of a vine, impossibly black and shimmering, coiled around a familiar park bench, then gone. That was strange enough. But then things got worse. The impossible flora of the moonlit garden began to briefly, terrifyingly, materialize beyond the iron gate. Glowing alien blossoms would appear on normal trees in the Bratislava park, their petals pulsing with an otherworldly light before winking out of existence. Fragments of the garden's shifting, dreamlike architecture, a section of crystalline wall, a spiral made of shadow, flickered into being along mundane pathways, only to dissolve like a bad dream. Conversely, within the Gate of Shadows itself, visitors reported seeing unsettling echoes of their own reality. A familiar street lamp from the park, its mundane yellow glow shockingly out of place, would stand momentarily amidst the garden's eternal night. A rusted swing set, a discarded plastic. The stable external world was no longer stable. The garden was no longer just a place to visit. It was expanding, aggressively, blurring the lines between what was real and what was merely a whisper from beyond. People say the gate of shadows is gone. Not vanished, not destroyed, but dissolved. At first, folks wondered if it had just been moved, perhaps re-hidden. But then things got worse. Now, when the moon rises over Bratislava, the transformation isn't confined to a single garden. Instead, shifting, shimmering patches of impossible flora appear everywhere. Familiar park benches might sit twisted within glowing alien moss. An old oak tree suddenly sprouts dark, thorny vines that hum with an unseen, frigid energy. The very ground shimmers like a heat haze on a summer road. But it's cold, and terribly wrong. No one knows why or how, but the park itself is slowly becoming the garden. Its edges blur, then dissolve entirely into this new moonlit reality. Time no longer pauses in one specific spot. Instead, fragments of utter stillness drift on the night wind, catching unwary souls in sudden, breathless pockets of eternity. And the brass key. Some swear they still see its ethereal. Others whisper that it's vanished entirely, swallowed whole by the pervasive, quiet spread of shadows, its purpose lost to an endless, silent assimilation.